Today's guest is Claudia Watts Edge. She had a profound NDE in 1984, which took over 30 years to evolve, and as a result, she has written 2 books exploring the spiritual mysteries of the other side. They are titled Gifts from the Edge, Stories of the Other Side, and Volume 2, Lessons from the Other Side. Claudia, thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate it. I appreciate the platform and how hard you work, and it's just we're gonna have an enjoyable evening together.
Yes, we are. And this is my 100th podcast. I got to flash in something.
Confetti. Yeah.
All right, so
that's awesome.
Yes.
Congratulations
Thank you.
On that.
Claudia, my audience loves NDE stories. So can you please start at the beginning and tell us how yours happened?
Sure. I was pregnant with my 5th and last baby. I'm very healthy. I'd had 4 beautiful children, and I was within a day or so of my due date. And, you're excited to meet this new little person. In 1984, they didn't have the ultrasounds and that gave you who the sex was of the baby. So I didn't know if I was getting a boy or a girl. And so I was very excited to meet this little person. And I went into you have children, so you understand when you have a contraction, the muscles tighten and then they loosen and they tighten, and it kind of pushes the baby, propels the baby. I went into a contraction that did not release. And I tried to ignore it, but my stomach was as hard as a rock. And it was like that for hours.
Wow.
And I started to get this feeling that, this isn't normal. I tried to just do other things, attend to the house, whatever, and just put it out of my mind, thinking it would change if I just kept moving about. But I just had this real impression that I should go to the hospital and have this checked out. And that was one of the things that I wanted to impress upon your audience and people that I've written about, is following your instincts.
Mm-hmm.
When you have an instinct that something's not quite right, follow it. It's there's instincts are there, they're a gift to us basically, and they're there for a purpose, to help nudge us, to help us keep us out of harm's way. And so I got to the hospital, and I told her I just didn't feel quite right. But I was in a contraction, and she says, well, you've had 4 other healthy children, so I'm sure you're going to be delivering tonight, but why don't you walk around the hospital and try to get things going? Well, I walked about not hardly 10 feet around a corner, and something just was not right. I didn't feel like I should leave that area. I sat down in a wheelchair by the elevator, and my husband was like, what are you doing? We're supposed to be walking around. And I just said, I just don't think I'm supposed to go any further. And we went back to the nurse's station, and I voiced that. And she said, let's get a gown on, and we'll admit you. Sent the husband in to do all of the insurance forms and, all that kind of good stuff. And as I was putting the gown on, I saw drops of blood. And it concerned me. I rang for the nurse, and she said, this is normal. You probably just pushed too hard or something when you went to the bathroom. And I was like, I haven't been in the bathroom. And about that time, it was like, those Home Depot those orange Homer buckets hold about 5 gallons. Yeah. It was like that tipped between my legs and just went all over myself, my legs, my feet. The nurse I was talking to, we were just in basically the locker room as this happened. It was there was so much blood. It covered it was on the walls. It was everywhere. And of course, both of us went, okay, this is not right. She actually pushed me down on a gurney that was nearby and started screaming code. It was happening really fast. I had absolutely no pain. What was happening, but that I didn't know at the time, is that the placenta had gone into a contraction blood was entering, but it was not exiting. And with every pump of my heart, blood was entering, and it was just filling further and further till it got to a point where it absolutely exploded.
Wow.
Afterwards, they found that they called it living shrapnel in my entire cavity, uterus and whatnot. So it was pretty gruesome. They were calling for, the doctor had just been told that, hey, she's a long way off. Don't worry about it. Roll over. And there were no doctors available in this particular part of the hospital. One had delivered a baby earlier and was on his way home. And it was like, this lady doesn't have time to wait for anybody. So they got an intern that came in with it's comical now. But at the time, I noticed he was reading some kind of a pamphlet, and I realized he'd never delivered a baby before, let alone an immediate cesarean section or, any kind of an emergency like this. And as they were donning gloves and gown, he was trying to read up on what it was he was supposed to do. Wow. And so I just went, I'm just going to give it over to you. And as he walked in, he saw the amount of blood everywhere. And there was no operating room. There was no anesthesia. I didn't even have an aspirin for this entire procedure. Basically, the hospital staff held me down and cut me from stem to stern. When that cut happened, it wasn't as horrible as you would imagine. It was pretty horrible, but I have a pretty good pain tolerance, and it felt like salt in a wound, that cut with that super sharp scalpel. And I thought, I think I'm going to be okay. I think I'm going to get through this because I could handle it. And getting on with what happens in a C-section is they start moving organs in that to get to the baby. And I noticed this nurse was kind of like a hose was wrapping gray rope around her arm. Happened to be my intestines. And it was painful, beyond words kind of painful. And I wanted to just climb off that gurney. I wanted to exit my body, anything to get away from that kind of pain. And I noticed that the ceiling had popped off. There was no covering over the room. It was just sky, and the walls in the room started to do a wave thing and become very fluid, and they were coming inward. And I was completely lucid because I had no pain medication or anything, and I was in no pain. So at first I was in no pain that I could, I was noting things and remembering. So I have quite a recall of the situation, and kind of lost my place there. Anyway, as this, I called it a tunnel. I thought, what this is, I think the beginnings of the tunnel that we've heard about in NDEs was the walls coming in. So I was pulling backwards in the room, and the room was getting darker. My hearing was getting much more acute, and I could hear conversations, phones ringing, television sets all over the hospital, basically. And I thought, if I calm myself down, perhaps my heart won't beat as quickly and I won't lose as much blood as quickly. So I was really trying to deal with that immense pain and calm all at the same time, which was quite a feat. Yeah. But I focused on some music that I heard, and the music happened to be the theme song for MASH. It was, here in Utah, at 10:35 in those years, they played MASH right after the evening news. And it's funny, in the midst of all of that and the tunnel and that, I thought, I'm dying and it's 10:35 and MASH is on. It was pretty wild. And when I popped out of my body, I focused on my feet, and all of a sudden it was like a a soft pop, like, those pop guns kids have, the little ball in a rubber gun, and you squish it and it makes that pop noise as the ball pops out.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a soft pop. There was nothing. It wasn't any more painful or anything to fear. It was really easy. And the point I wanted to make to the audience was that it was familiar in a way. It's like it wasn't like a mystery, like I had done this before. And I was very comfortable going, oh, there's my body. Now, the scene below me was completely gruesome. It looked like a war zone in there. And I, the activity of trying to work on myself and my young daughter, it turned out to be a girl. And I left because they were trying to revive her. She had drowned in my blood in the uterus, and they were trying to revive her, and it was just too much. And I thought, I was calm and peaceful above this, what was going on below, and I just kind of floated out of the room and left that scene behind. And it wasn't even unusual that I knew how to float. It's like I was navigating walls and all kinds of things. I went into the waiting room and I saw my then husband with a clipboard and, diligently filling out paperwork, insurance cards, driver's license, all of that stuff for the hospital. And I paused for a moment over near him and just thought, he has no idea what's happening. It's only been under 5 minutes of this entire event. And so he didn't have an inkling of what was happening behind the wall. And after I spent a few moments, I just felt really bad for my family and what they were going to be going through, what they were all going to face. I continued searching for the music, and I ended up floating down the hospital hallway. And I ended up in a man's room in a hospital bed, and he was watching MASH, and I had found where the music had come from. And I just was kind of near his bed, and he didn't notice that I was there. After a few moments, I thought, he doesn't have a clue I'm here. I must be dead. And as soon as I thought that, I was in an entirely different place. I was in this absolute perfect darkness. It was so black I could not see my hand in front of my face. I was not afraid. It was not negative. It was a loving, it was alive. It knew me intimately, and it held me like cradling a baby. And I was as comforted and as peaceful in this wonderful place of absolute everything and absolutely nothing all at the same time. It was so vast, and yet my place in it was in just this wonderful little cuddle snuggle, and I was so happy to be there. And that is what I took from my near-death experience. I was soon in my body, and I was kind of famous in the hospital for a while. I was there for quite a while, and they nicknamed me Pioneer Woman because I had gone through this experience with absolutely, as I said earlier, no anesthesia, nothing, no oxygen, not an operating room. It was just kind of hold her down and cut her open and start pulling, body parts out. So it was a teaching hospital, and they would come in and say, what did it feel like? They've got their charts. Well, what did it feel like this and this when this happened, and try to explain, the level of pain or something that you went through. It was really not odd questions, just really unanswerable questions. When you're in that much pain, it just hurts. There's not really good earth words to describe it. And the other thing, and I think it was a forward-thinking hospital, because there wasn't a question that I had died. They were basically telling me when you were dead, Did you see anybody? Where did you go? Can you give us some information as far as the other side? Now, I had grown up in a religious family, and the connotation was always, the good and evil, the light versus dark, positive, negative. And I didn't know how to express it. I'd been in the most fantastic, wonderful place. And yes, it was completely black. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to express that without feeling like I was giving a sacred event that had happened to me and letting someone soil it, so to speak, by maybe putting a negative spin on it. And so I had lost my father when I was 16, and I was aware of near-death experiences because I really wanted to know what he was doing. What do you do after you die? Where do you go? Because, you look down at this shell of a body, and they're not there. I mean, it's so apparent they're not there. But there was this energetic, wonderful person that housed, that shell was their home. So where did they go, and what are they doing, and are they happy there? Does he miss me as much as I miss him? All of those kinds of things. So I read a lot of near-death experiences in my time. And because this one didn't match any of the wonderful garden scenes or seeing Jesus or whatever, I actually started to feel like a shame came over me. Like, maybe I'm not as that good. Maybe I don't think it was hell, but it wasn't the heavens that I had heard about. Mm-hmm. So I really just became very tight-lipped about it. I couldn't offer a story of seeing my father, and hugging him, and relatives that other people's stories. And I knew I had a story, but I couldn't tell it. It was not complete. It took me over 30 years of this kind of wanting and continuing research and reading. I would meet other authors. I would go to lectures, or, whoever was in town or in this genre. And I felt like I was kind of being gleaned to continue a curiosity, because something that I have found early, and I'm addressing it in a new book that I'm writing, but is when you have a near-death experience, or you have had a spiritually transformative experience, something that has been so wonderful, that it was so real, it's a perfect box with a ribbon on top. There is nothing that beats that. How real it was, more real than this life. You've heard people talk that way, and it's true. And so when you get wrapped up in that box of that NDE, your experience, it's hard to listen to someone else's experience that may be a little bit different than yours, because yours was perfect. You were there, and so the next person's that, they didn't see Jesus, they saw grandma, or, whatever, changes are different. It's kind of like, yeah, they'll listen, but not further study. And that box, to me, becomes a containment that stops curiosity. You've been there, what it's like, you're excited to go back again someday, you're not afraid of dying. But for me, I think that the memory of the near-death experience was wiped. I think I was held and comforted from the trauma of my experience, but I was made to be open to all different experiences. And I've been shown that because in the last 10 years is when my dreams and memories and visions have really come alive, almost in a nightly fashion. I have notebooks upon notebooks of journals of dream, waking up and recording what I saw the night before. And I knew there was a book in me somewhere, but it took a lot of years to kind of put the experience together through these dreams. And it was like a carrot just kind of in front of me to just lead me on, one more step. Some of my dreams have been what I call spirit school, where I'll get a lesson or something that I feel like is a piece of the spiritual puzzle that a lot of people, why am I here? Why, why don't I know my purpose or whatever? How come I don't remember? Things like that. And so I'll have a dream. They'll actually have like a billboard, and it's like, tonight's dream is cause and effect, or, so I write them in they come to me like a metaphor or a parable, so that it's something that I will understand. And if I share it, that perhaps someone else will understand, but it's not necessarily the exact way it is. It's just something for the human mind to be able to grasp. So I'll get lessons in reincarnation and all kinds of fun things like that. One of the reasons, I'll just kind of jump in, to our earth life, it's like, it's so confusing. It's like, is there really a God? Well, all the newspaper headlines, and, if there is a God, why is he allowing so much of this strife and hate and whatnot? And, I've heard everything from, that earth is we're tested, right? We come here for certain tests or whatnot. And a lot of religions will, spin that to, how perfect can we live in this life? Can we live without sin? And we've made up things and called them sin. And our life here it's such a gift. This world was created as a perfect gift, a perfect kind of testing ground for our souls to come and experience. It's not necessarily a test. It's a chance to take a subject, be it, why are two people, why is someone mean to another person, and to be in their shoes, and what led them to having this kind of a consciousness that they could kill another person, or without any kind of regret or anything. And then you can come back again and step in the victim's shoes and experience, what it was like for them. And the perpetrator will have a chance to feel what it was like to be that victim, and to feel that fear and whatnot. It's a chance to walk in another man's shoes. And we do it over and over again until we really get it down at a complete 360-degree view of what leads us to these particular things. And we do it as a service. We do it because we are pieces of God, and we are the physical, because God is not physical. We were created to come here and experience physical, and then we bring that experience back. And it's like, now I know it, but I also have felt it. We are helping the God that we love, the source creator, by us being, foot soldiers here, basically, and experiencing these things. Mm-hmm. So I'm on a roll. If you had any questions, I'll just keep going.
Okay. Do you feel that you pierced the veil with your NDE, and now that's made it easier for you to have these dreams that give you lessons in spirituality?
I think it was kind of a holding place. It's a hard one for me to answer, but I know that I was on the other side. I did pierce the veil, and I really believe that anyone who has, it becomes easier to accept and that's a good word for it, because are we now more accepting of those kind of things, or expecting those kind of things in our dreams, because we've kind of seen it, we have an inkling of it, we've kind of been there, we recognize perhaps the sounds of it or the feelings of dying or whatnot for some of these like out of body experiences where you hear the chimes or the little lights, the little orbs or whatever. And so perhaps someone who has been on the other side, even for just those few moments, I think there is something that opens up within and an acceptance of experiencing more. I don't think that it's limited to someone who has had a near-death experience. I think that there are many people who can, well, in fact, the book that I'm writing, a number of people had spontaneous experiences while walking in nature. One woman, I just got her story, and she was in deep meditation. She didn't even remember where she was when she woke up. She got in her car, and somehow she got her car home, and without even realizing that she was driving. Mm-hmm. She had been in such an experience, and so I really think that there is a if you're willing, and I was willing for 30 years. So I would want to caution anyone that goes to bed tonight and says, yeah, I really want that too. Mm. If you are ready, and if it's a fervent desire and that you really try to obtain, I want more. I want to learn more. I want to go to sleep tonight and I want to wake up with another piece of that spiritual puzzle. Mm. I think that is, I think there is a certain, I was going to say the word level, but it's not quite correct, but, a vibratory, desire, and you've kind of risen through your own works of perhaps meditation or prayer or whatnot, that you get in kind of that state where you're in a position to receive. Mm. And so I think it's absolutely possible.
In your dreams, are you downloading information? Is a being coming to you and giving you information, or are you leaving your body and going somewhere and getting this information?
Good question. And it's both. Hmm. There are times when I feel I have, well, okay, I used to be a hospice volunteer. And I spent 5 years in Colorado Springs in the Pikes Peak Hospice. They called it the Bridge, a lot because of the way the hospital was built, and it was kind of a secondary piece of the hospital. But I think because you're on that bridge between this life and the next life. And in that setting, sorry, I got so into my explanation of, I forgot the road I wanted to take you down. That's okay. What was my question again?
You're dreaming, and I guess you called it dream school or spiritual school.
I remember.
Are you leaving and going to school, or is the teacher coming to you?
I'm leaving and going to school. And I do remember where I wanted to take you on that was the fact that my in earnest trying to help someone in the process of dying, I do that work a lot in night hours. I have found myself at bedsides of people that I don't know, or people that are unconscious, but we are doing a kind of a telecommunication, and I'm trying to explain the other side and to be able to leave without fear. And I know that we do have work, that we do leave our bodies, and we do all kinds of stuff, that we just have no idea the next morning. And my biggest thing is just, and it's not, I don't remember every single time, or it's a flash. I have to really work at it. And that's the other thing, as far as telling your audience, get in the habit of, when you wake, don't open your eyes right away, lay there a minute and think, where was I? What was, was there something that you can remember? And if you can remember even just a little bit of your dream, you might be able to pull more out of it and examine it. Where was I, or what did I do? But in answer to your, in spirit school, I know that I visit the other side, or it is something that it's not of this world. I've been there in a nature setting, but I've also been there in a classroom type setting, and I don't see the other students, but I excuse my phone. Let me reach over here. How rude.
That's all right.
And that I'm in a setting and I don't realize the other students that are there, but I know they are. And I don't recall my guide being next to me, but I know that my guide is there too. My guide has been very helpful in my lessons. And my lessons, I think I trust my dreams more than anything. And so he's worked with me in my dreams. And I talk about, he'll dress up in very weird costumes. And it seems very odd, but it's meant to kind of pull me away from the dream that's happening. Here's your dream. Here's your screen. You're viewing yourself in a dream. And then over here on the side of the screen is someone that's dressed up in a fairy costume or the Texaco man or a whirling dervish or something really odd. And you go, and you're in this dream and it's like, wait a minute, what's this over here? And why is this, animated character acting so weird? And it pulls you without waking you up. He pulls me out of the dream to be able to kind of stand and witness the dream. And then something like spirit school or whatnot will start when I've pulled out of the actual dream. It's kind of hard to explain, but he is, I've seen him dressed up as like Mrs. Doubtfire. He has really a sense of humor, but it's kind of like, look at me. And then he'll hold up a billboard that says, pay attention to this. And this is after, a fervent desire and trying to record every dream and getting used to that dream, used to dreaming. And then I'll hold up a journal and start writing before I've even, risen out of bed. It'll look like scribbles, but I'll catch a word, VW, beetle or, whatever, the color yellow or a mountainside or whatever it is. And then I can lay there and process it.
What are some of the most profound lessons that you learned while you're there?
Well, just the fact that I was shown being a piece of God, that was kind of a big one. It's like we grow up in a religion to worship. They're separate from us, right? They're Jesus and God and whatnot. And they're, I'd even said at times, I just want to touch the hem of his garment, of Jesus's garment. And what I've learned is we're friends. Sorry, because I don't want to make light of it. And I want your audience to understand I consider it a sacred friendship, but I do not worship Jesus. I consider him a brother and a friend. And when I would say something like, I want to touch the hem of your garment, he'd be like, no, I want you to walk beside me. He's not interested in being worshiped. He really wants us to love and help each other and kind of, work within those types of teachings, but he doesn't want us to make him a god. It's almost offensive to him. And that was a big piece for me to step back and it used to be when I would try and pray and you learn those things like thee and thou and all of these words that are not in our vernacular these days. I don't use those terms. So when I'm praying and using those words, in a way, it's like, I feel like it's a way of separating us and keeping them at a distance, instead of saying, hey, did you see that car just about ran that lady over, whatever? Like I just talk in normal. And it's almost like you can hear them, kind of laughing back or talking back or whatever, as if you had a friend in the car with you, rather than this, set apart person. So that was a biggie for me. And another one is the fact that there's not hell. As humans, because we are part of God, we are able to create. Our thoughts create, our words create. We can create a situation just by, participating in, anyway, just kind of bringing our awareness to a lower vibration or whatnot. And when you grow up and someone is saying, if you do this and you sin and you do this and you're going to go to hell, it's almost like an expected thing. It's like, I've been bad, so when I die, I'm probably going to go to hell. And then someone dies and it's like they expect it. And so when I hear of NDEs that have been in hell, that have experienced it, I believe it. I believe that they have been there, but it's of their own making. It's something that they expected and they created. Because what I have been shown and what I went through is when you get over to the other side, you go through this life review. And it's not a small thing of just enjoying past videos of when you were 5 and the birthday party and the pony you rode and all of that stuff. It is an experience to feel like if you were unkind to someone, you bullied someone. In that experience, you not only see yourself doing that, but you feel the victim of your own words and the way that this person felt as you were belittling them or whatnot. And it's a horrible feeling. It's not something that you want to live through. And you are embarrassed. You're in a room with your elders and people who love you, could be ancestors or some of your closest friends. And they're there to help you through it because you're going to be your own worst judge. There is no reason to make you feel like you're going to be punished. It's absolutely, let's see what you learned. Let's see if you improved on this. But it is only in absolute love of you and support of you. And you'll step back and go, oh my God, I can't believe I called her those names and, or whatever, you're ashamed of yourself in those situations. But also you will see the times where you might have just thrown out a smile to someone that really needed it, spoke a kind word, and it may not even be something that even registered with you that you had even done it. And here it is on this screen, and the screens are all around you. And you have this amazing capacity to hear and learn and see at 360 degrees. So it's all happening at once, but you're getting all of it. You're not missing a thing. And those times when you were kind, it's like you can see the ripple effect of that kindness, and that it really changed someone's day and perhaps even someone's life. And those are the ones where you'll go, wow, I kind of did a good job, and so you go through both of those things in that life review. But and I know we're kind of running out of time, but I just wanted to impress that I would not fear that punishment that were, you better be good, or, I never saw, and I've never talked to anyone that walked away from these experiences thinking that there was a hell. So that was a biggie.
Now, you had a spirit guide. Would you say your spirit guide is an angel? Are those the same thing, or are they different?
I didn't see angels, though in one dream. And I always wondered about why did they say angels have wings? And it's been, just a question. It's been one of those. And I did have a dream at one point of seeing an angel with wings. Not necessarily for me, but I saw it, and it was in one of those situations where I knew it was more of an experience than just, flighty night renderings of dreams. It was something to, I think, to answer that question. And I saw how the wing worked, and that it wasn't this odd, stiff, glued on, kind of thing. It worked somehow. And I remember waking up with an aha of like, oh, I guess there's some angels that do have wings, because it made absolute sense. I couldn't explain to you now how it was attached, that it seemed so natural, but it was like, oh, that was really natural. I guess that, really happens. As far as my spirit guide, and since your program has, these great listeners with open minds, I would share that I wanted to get to know my spirit guide. I used to travel a lot. I sold eyewear, and I would travel state to state, appointments all day long, and in the car, a lot of windshield time, a lot of different motels and whatnot, state to state. And I knew that I had someone in the front seat with me, in the passenger seat. I've got a friend, and I didn't hear him or see him or anything, but I just had that feeling based on other people's stories that we have spirit guides. And I would talk to him. I'd be like, that same thing that I was saying earlier. It's like, wow, did you see, that car, there was almost a wreck or whatever. And I probably seem a little bit crazy, to admit that, but that I would talk to my passenger that I couldn't see in the other seat. But I really wanted to get to know who it was. And I really wanted a relationship. And so I started, I would go on these walks. I was living at Colorado Springs at the time, and living near the Air Force Academy, and they had great walking trails all through there. Beautiful country. And I would go on these 2-hour walks on these trails, and I would talk to my guide and ask him to show up for me. It's like, I really want to know what you look like. And I would get something like a white butterfly, and not just the field moth looking, but like a really distinct butterfly. And at first I was like, oh yeah, butterfly or whatever, and just keep walking. Gee, I really want to know you, my spirit guide. I want to know what you look like. And it went on for quite a while. And everything that would show up would be the white butterfly, a white bird. It had this theme of the white. And there along that Air Force Academy trail, there were people who would it was a very groomed trail, and there weren't very many rocks, like little pebbles, but someone had brought rocks, or continued to bring them, because there were these little black rocks, little flat stones, river rock type things. And along the posts of the fence line, every now and again, you'd see a stack of rocks, or someone who put, 5 rocks in a row or whatever. And I'd walked that for a long time before I really noticed that. And I went, someone is putting rocks on this trail, and all of them were black. And I got to this one point, and I was like, gee, I really, really want to know what my guide looks like. I really want to know my guide. And I got up to this one post, and there were 5 white stones. There weren't any white stones anywhere around. And I just knew that I was in communication in their way, that I accepted that. It sounds like a small thing, but if you start allowing those kind of messages and accepting them, whether it be from a loved one that's passed, and they're sending you a butterfly, or they're sending you a hummingbird or something like that, and you're like, yeah, there's some hummingbirds, and yeah, we really liked hummingbirds together. But if you are open to that and go, oh, that could be mom in that hummingbird, and if you do that often enough, it's like an invitation for them to do more. It's like, that's accepted. So I'm going to do more. I'm going to do it more often. And anyway, back to my, I was going to go off on another trail, but I think I should stay with my spirit guide. I was part of a group, and a private group, and one of the admins was a medium type. She could see things, and I asked her one time if she could help me know what my guide looked like. And it was amazing because she says, I don't know if you want to know. She says, because it's really different. And I says, well, what's his name? And she says, I can't pronounce it. It's not of this world. And I says, what does it sound like? And she says, it sounds like clicking noises. And I have, ever since a kid, every now and again, I'll get a click, click, click in my left ear. And I've always wondered what it was. But I'm going clicking noises and clicking noises. And I said, no, I really want to know what my guide looks like. And she says, he looks like a gargoyle. He's all white. And the reason that she hesitated telling me is because I spent a lot of years afraid. You know, it's like I'd seen things in my room as a kid, and it's like, I don't want to see a ghost. If you're a ghost, just leave me alone. You know, I don't want to play. That wasn't my thing. To this day, I can see all kinds of dead people, but they're in my visual, in a screen type situation, rather than at the end of my bed. It's okay if they're right here, but it's not okay if they're right there and they seem real in my room. I don't know. There's just a big difference to me. And so she thought it might give me pause, give me fear. She said, he's all white and he's furry and he talks with this clicking sound. So I can't pronounce his name. And I says, I want to call you something. So I've ended up calling him Click Click. It's just, just kind of a homey fun, it's like I talk to him all the time, and I asked if that was okay. And he laughed and he says, you can call me anything you want. And I did see him in a dream one time, and he does look like a gargoyle, but you know what? He's the most teddy bearish of a gargoyle you'd ever see. Absolutely full of love, and there was no fear at all. And I felt so blessed to be able to see him. I don't need to see him anymore. He doesn't show me when he's in Mrs. Doubtfire costumes or whatever. He'll, that tulle, that wedding fabric, he'll have a hat that's just, his whole face is wrapped. But I did get to see him that one time. And with that medium, she asked him, what, I've never seen someone of a different world as a spirit guide. And he says, no, I don't normally go to that place. Earth. It's kind of like Earth was said in that context. But he said, this is kind of a special deal. And I agreed to go and be your guide. So I feel really special that I have an otherworldly spirit guide, and he's got a great sense of humor, and, it's pretty awesome.
It is awesome. If you had advice...
I don't share that regularly.
Well, I thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. If you knew somebody who is afraid of dying and they've never had an NDE, what kind of advice would you give them?
If they have a little bit of time, I would, and if they've never even read an accounting or anything.
They don't have to be dying or terminal or anything, just the average person, what I mean?
Just a fear, right? Just that fear. I think occasions like your podcast are so beneficial in the world, because I've seen the groups. I joined a number of them, and then I kind of had to unjoin a few of them, because it's hard to say the same thing over and over again, and it feels like no one's listening. A lot of people, fear can be a story. Fear can be, your you've had a trauma as a child or something, and now you're afraid of heights or something, and it becomes kind of your handle. It's like, who am I without that story or without that fear? And so a lot of people will voice the fear, but they're not really resolute in trying to correct it, to try and work on it. As far as that someone would be afraid to die, and to me, when I worked in hospice, and hospice was, kind of an area where I think the family was in more fear of it than the patient. When you get to the point of that you've been facing it for a while, you get that acceptance and that kind of peace about it. But the family is hesitant to let you go, or they're still trying to come to grips with it. So, boy, my advice in almost anything is just in love, in calm, and letting them voice that fear, and just trying it. It kind of just depends on if it is a dying situation, or like I say, in some of these groups, they may be fearful right up till the day. It's a hard one to answer, Jeff. It really is.
I think you did. Thank you. All right. You've written 2 books. Are you writing a third, or do you have any other projects that you're working on that you want us to know about?
Well, thank you. I did. I wrote, my first book was a lot of letting go of my mother. I spent a month in the hospital with her, and it was after I had served hospice, so I was familiar with a lot of that, and I think that was part of perhaps a contract with her to just be with her and to help her into that next realm. It wasn't that she was afraid, but she had spent her whole life just putting one foot in front of the other, that one day she said, because she wasn't getting any better, but she wasn't getting any worse, and she was struggling very hard to just do what she naturally did, which was wake up and do her thing and work very hard, and breathing became harder. And she said to me one day, how do you die? I kind of just don't know how. And it was like, that was really thought-provoking. It's kind of like, like your soul knows when it's time, but other than holding her hand and looking for those visitations or, dreams or something, and I would ask her, and we shared many dreams together, and things that I shared as far as after she passed. Communication is my first book. A lot of that of just learning how to journal dreams, communicate with past loved ones, because I still wasn't ready to write about my NDE. And I start my second book out as the 10 things I learned when I died. And it's a real quick synopsis, but it's pretty powerful. And I tried to just make it easy for someone to go, oh, there's no hell, there's, and then the rest of the book kind of supports that, my near-death experience, and then what I have learned in spirit school and whatnot. The project that I'm on right now, I'm so proud of, is all of my NDEers, all my authors that I just admire. To me, authors are like the rock stars, right? They're, movie star. And when you can put a book together, that to me, that's my honor, to meet somebody. And so I have this collection of wonderful people, and it's like, I know every one of them have a wonderful story, but I just want a piece of it. I want something that could be at the table of a cancer center or a hospital or a hospice, where, again, the short stories, because the attention span is short. You may only be reading to a patient for 15 minutes or something, and not an entire book on an NDE. But I have wonderful short synopsis stories throughout this book from some of the most, you mentioned from your show, like PMH Atwater is in there, and Reverend Bill McDonald. And I dare not even mention a bunch of them, because I'll leave someone out and it's going to make, it'll make people feel bad. Right. It is loaded with the most wonderful stories, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through. I've gotten just the most beautiful, heartwarming stories, and it's an exciting book. And I'm getting to the point where I get to weave myself in between all of the stories, and I'm expecting that to come out by this spring, end of April, first part of May. And I think that's going to be one to look for. And that will be called We Touched Heaven.
Sounds great. It reminds me of chickens. You know those books, Chicken Soup for the Soul? It's like
and I read those, yeah.
I was like, that's like chicken soup for the indie ear.
You totally, in fact, that was my, call for papers when I was trying to get people to sign on. I was like, yes, I know there's chicken soup and I think they're wonderful, but I wanted to go into the death realm. That's my subject, right? This is what I love to talk about. And it lifts me, it fills me. It's my purpose. I know that this is my purpose. I can't get this excited about anything else. What was it Oprah said one time? This is my favorite thing to talk about. And this is my favorite thing to talk about. And I think there was that need. This is kind of the chicken soup of hey, some real deep stuff, but it's heartwarming and it's thought provoking. And I think it's going to find a really wide audience. So I'm really thrilled to get that word out there.
That's great. Where do we find your other two books? On Amazon or?
Yeah, right. They are called Gifts from the Edge is the series. One is Stories of the Other Side and the other is Lessons of the Other Side. You can get it at Amazon. It's just the easiest. Just click on Gifts from the Edge. And I keep the price down. To me, the getting it out there is more important than it's not any spiritual writer that's ever made money. I don't know if I could count them even with a couple of fingers. It just doesn't happen. But it's okay because this is what we're supposed to do. This matters. And so it's all a work of love.
It's great. Do you interact with the public, like on Facebook, or are you more of a private person?
I do. No, I'm not. I feel like the private has to be gone. I spent 30 years in it, right? Didn't talk about it. And now I can't stop talking about it. In fact, sometimes I feel like if I'm in a party situation, it's like, don't talk about death. I don't want to be that wah, wah. Here comes Debbie taking over. And, it's like, we want to party. We don't want to talk about somebody's funeral. Right. But I'm open to, my Facebook, it's Claudia Edge, and you can find me also on Gifts from the Edge. I have a Facebook page there too, and I have a website in the works. So it's not super exciting right now, but that's claudiaedge.com. And send me questions. We'll have conversations. It's my favorite thing to talk about.
When you are at parties, do people just come up and start talking to you about it because they know that, you're into it and you write books about it?
Very rarely.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. It is. It's funny. I think there's a Facebook meme out there where it's like, I want to talk about, things that scare you, your first love, your first kiss. I want to talk about aliens. I want to talk about sex. I want to talk about this, and I don't want to hear, hey, what's up? To me, the conversation's got to be interesting. And I go deep and I go deep real fast. If I find someone compatible, I can corner them for a while. But only when they're receptive. Yeah. Otherwise, I try and hold it back a little bit. Yeah.
That makes sense. All right. Since we're running out of time and we're about to wrap it up, can you give us one last message before you go?
Ooh, I'll give you the coolest aha.
Awesome.
And this is a memory. And I was in a kind of like a clear plastic bubble. But I could hear out of it, but it was a protective bubble. And I was there with my spirit guide as we raced among the stars. I was in the universe and I was next to my guide, and I was perfectly safe, and I was admiring everything. And as we were shooting up to a star, it was fast. I mean, it had to be fast, but it wasn't warp speed where it was just a blink of light that fast. But I could see an approaching star. And as we approached, I could hear the star talking. The stars, sorry, I get goosepimply. The stars are conscious and they know us. And it was amazing because they'd be like, "Oh, Claudia's back. How was it? Oh, we've missed you. Welcome back." We all know each other up there. I don't know if we if we have our own star or something. I have not been given that information, other than I was with my guide one time, and I have a wonderful brother that he's in the gym all the time, even in his 60s. He's been suntanned and oiled down his whole life. And he says, you want to see Jeff's star? And I went, yeah, show me Jeff's star. And he points up, and this star literally did this twinkle thing, like it was kind of showing off. I knew it was his star. And so I don't know if that was my total answer that we are stars, but I'll tell you, I heard it, saw it, felt it. There's consciousness out there, and we get to go through it and visit it, and it's amazing.
I don't know how many stars out there, because I was showing my son the other day, and you may have seen it. They just took a inch of the sky with the Hubble telescope, and with that inch there's probably 1,000 galaxies, and within each galaxy there's, I think they say, it seems like an odd number to me, but I think it was 1,000 million stars
in that, in the galaxy,
in one galaxy, and then there was 1,000 galaxies in 1 inch of space.
And how arrogant for us to think, are we alone out here? It's like, are you kidding? There's a lot of us, and there are so many different schools, Earth type situations. We're like revered here. This is a tough place. We're rock stars for doing Earth.
Wow.
We go back, it's kind of like, bravo, what job well done. And if you can get through it and have done a good job, there's reward. The reward is, sorry, I'm trying to think of the right word, but and advanced isn't, but accelerated, an accelerated spiritual. When you have this much experience in one lifetime here, and you come back, it's like, you get our want and desire is to get back to Creator, and we do that by continually. I don't like the word lessons, going through these experience and gaining knowledge, and so when we get back there, it's sorry, I just stepped off a cliff. I had a really good delivery there, and I can't remember what I was going to say. That's part of being 68,
Well, I was going to follow up with that. One of my other guests told me that, this is a tough place, Earth, and people who are here are all spiritual warriors.
Yeah. There are all kinds of wonderful planets, of water lives, of, way too many to even mention. Gases. We could be a gas on another planet, right. It's not the same type of experience. But I did have a memory of a life that I lived as a simple garden grub. Sounds really funny. And the experience was so wonderful. I was in a perfectly warm place, and everything I needed was right there. All my relatives were all over each other. You eat, whatever, all right in that place. And there's not a hierarchy there. We're all the same, It's like, your dad's there or whatever, but he doesn't have anything of remembering of you. You're just this colony.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so peaceful and such joy. I woke up from that memory and went, that had to have been the favorite life that I can remember.
Hmm.
And you think about, as a bug,
Mm-hmm.
but it was, and I don't know if we get those kind of as a rest, maybe it was a respite, because that life isn't going to be more than a month or two old. I don't know how long grubs live, but
Mm-hmm.
there was certainly a lot of peace in that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when it's like this life just gets really hard, I think about, that was a good life.
Yeah. I was thinking about this and wanted to say earlier when we were talking about the cosmos that I don't know if he was a general or a defense minister or what, but this guy from Israel had just came out and said, yes, there's aliens, UFOs, all this stuff. It's all real. But I found the most profound thing that he said was, space is not what you think it is. And people can't handle that.
Okay.
So
I don't know if I have anything to.
I don't know what I mean.
I know I got to travel through it, but I would say it's certainly just knowing that there's consciousness there. I mean, the Earth is conscious,
right,
our planets, that I would say, why not? Why aren't the stars, conscious?
Yeah.
And so maybe he didn't have the words to take it a little further, because I'm probably afraid that it would freak a lot of people out. But yeah, it's definitely not just a pretty thing to look at it in the evening. It's not just for our romantic background.
Right.
It's pretty awesome.
Right. Well, Claudia, I really appreciate you coming. And when you get your next book out, I definitely want to have you back, because I could already talk to you more, but we're running out of time. But we can talk about your new book and some other stuff.
I would love that. That'd be perfect.
That's great.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Jeff. Thank you, audience, for listening to me. Mm-hmm. It's wonderful. Thank you.
And thank you for joining me. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching the Jeff Mara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.